one of these days I'm gonna have to get a glow stick going because everyone's always talking about glow stick time. Oot, 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 oot. Yes, exactly. Time to get pumped up with some Write-Aerobics, everybody. Welcome. Our first warm-up is our synonym sit-up. So you know what to do. Shout out. Put in those synonyms in the chat. Let's go. Play. Yes. Play. What do we got? Frolic. Have fun. Yep. Play is a word often, when you say somebody's playing in the playground. Well, that's kind of redundant. Get into details instead of saying, he played while they ate dinner, he tossed balls in the ball pit. Get more specific. Same thing with make. Create. Again, get into the details. Yeah, craft, carved, sculpt, develop, carve. Yeah, exactly. Turned. Turned. Zombified. Yes. Spinned. Or spun. Spinned. That's not a word. Spun. Well, spin, I guess, is a word, but spun, whipped around. Yep. Rotated. Look. This is one that we often throw in. Not always the best idea. Glance, peer, observed. Right, exactly. Glanced, glared, gawked. Look is a word that we often will overuse because we understand that what a character is looking at is what they're interested in, what they're drawing attention to, but we'll sometimes overuse it, especially from the main character perspective. We'll be in that main character head, and it'll be like, Daniel walked in the room. Daniel looked at the chair. Daniel looked at the wall. And you don't really have to do that. If you start talking about the chair, if you start talking about the wall, well, the idea is that Daniel's probably looking at it because otherwise, how did he notice those things? So just keep that in mind. Exercise number 2. Backstory building. All right, so I got a good one for you today. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this video and we're going to come up with a backstory for these characters that we're just going to invent on the spot. But this is an interesting one. Let's see what you come up with. My dude, do not eat in the lab. Yeah, is that what she's thinking? She's like, really? You're just going to eat right here? See, I was thinking that what sick power play is this eating my lunch in front of me? He's like, let me test your burger and make sure it's okay. But no, I was thinking is like maybe this is some sort of like created food, right? They're like lab technicians and they're working on, yeah, lab grown meat has a great texture. I was thinking that maybe they've like gotten a food printer and they're like, this food from our replicator tastes just like a normal Big Mac. Wow. I want a food printer. Yeah, I want a food printer. Absolutely. I'll be okay with just a robot though. Like a robot chef, that's okay. I don't have to have a food printer. But, because I already have my groceries delivered to my house. So if the groceries get delivered to my house and I just have to put them away, and then I have my little robot arm, why settle, Daniel? And if I have a little robot arm cook it all together, that's fine. Although I actually like cooking, so. But yeah. All right, moving on. Exercise number 3, perspective pumps. So we're going to take a look at the scene and we're going to try to analyze it from different perspectives. Somebody who thinks the scene looks cool, good, inviting, somebody who looks at the scene and thinks it's off-putting, scary, whatever. Let's take a look. Obviously, two perspectives come to mind immediately, and that is that this tree branch probably not liking all of this fungus that's like a parasite on top of it. On the other hand, parasite's like, oh, we found ourselves a good gigs. We're spreading like crazy on this little tree trunk. Now, for other people too, they might be looking and they're like, this beautiful tree is taken over by this terrible fungus. On the other hand, somebody be like, wow, this fungus is really beautiful looking. Look at all the patterns. Look at all the textures. Look at all the different colors. Way more attractive than just a simple tree. You were just thinking about breakfast. Earth recycling itself. Ooh, I like that perspective. Yeah, the cycle of nature. It's the circle of life. It shows that there can be a beauty to something that has that sort of like parasite relationship, which often when you do a story, parasites are negative, but think about that. Think about that. Think about the beauty even in a situation like that. All right, poisonous ending. Right, exactly. All right, we're gonna now do 3 key details. So we're gonna look at this scene, and we are going to come up with 3 details from it. I often say when describing a scene, 3 details is about what the audience can usually accept. Once you get beyond that, it starts to get overly flowery, overly complicated, or honestly, the audience may not even pay much attention. So, 3 key details. Obviously, a lot going on in the scene, so there's a lot of different things that you could gravitate towards. A bird drone. There is this random bird that just flies in. That is true. And that could be one of the key details, right? The 3 things that I jump onto immediately is the way that the orange light comes through and reflects off of the car, so I'd want something for that. The general hustle and bustle of the cars on the road is something that I would want to point out. And then I would want to point out the fact that it is cold out because it looks like it is snow. So I would want to point that out too. So get something with the temperature, get something with that sound and hustle and bustle of the movement, and then something with that visual with that beautiful orange haze. Those are the 3 things that stand out to me. The sunlight. Yeah, I think that orange glow, I'd really want to figure out a way to paint that picture for my readers. Now, this is something to keep in mind whenever you're writing. Do not be afraid to pull up references because you're going to come up with different ideas when you actually can see something. As great as your memory is, don't be afraid to look things up. I mean, you got YouTube, you got so many resources where you can look up scenes and things like that. Evening commute, sunset architecture. Yeah, there's architecture going on. That's another thing that you could point out for sure as well. You also have just that one cloud in the background, although I think that might be from a factory, but it's just this one like cloud of like some sort of pollution in the background that you could point out as well. All right, so our final exercise is thinking about our next scene. This is going to be what we are currently working on. Maybe you're working on a first draft, maybe you're working on a rewrite, but whatever you're working on, think about the next scene that you are going to approach, whatever that is. So think about that. Each scene builds into the next. They all have something to do with our main character's journey, or, sometimes the scene jumps into another character. There's a subplot or something like that, but then it's that character's journey, right? Moving forward. Something is happening in the scene, please. I hope something is happening in the scene that actually affects the story. It's not just a complete side quest. Those are dangerous. I would recommend that. All right. So, what is the question of the scene? And what I mean by that is, what is that big thing that the scene is asking the what question is the audience going to have about the scene in terms of how it's going to unfold? Like, for example, it's um the monster is coming towards them, and the question could be, is the monster going to get them? That is the question. Or maybe it's the question is, I need to get to my car. Is my car going to start? Something like that. Because my car doesn't tend to work. There's always usually some tension point. I talked about the inflection point last time where the question comes to a head, but we need to know what that question even is. So you need to know, what is the scene building up to? What is that question? And then make sure we build up to it. Writers have pointed out that a great way to build a book is to think of your scenes as a series of questions. They get to the door, and is the door locked? And then the answer is yes or no. And if it's yes, it's like, yes, the door is locked, but, and there's another conflict to worry about, and that leads you to your next scene, right? Or you do no, and there's an extra conflict to worry about on top of that conflict because you're just piling on. Do you put an answer key at the end of the book? Well, that's the whole point, right? The whole point is that the scene answers that question, but you're asking the audience those prompting questions to keep them reading, because that's what makes them interested. If we knew everything that was going to happen at the beginning, well, that wouldn't be terribly interesting. That would, be more of an exercise in some sort of like mental gymnastics than it would be like reading a fun narrative, right? So, throughout the book, we are asking those questions. The audience is going to be asking those questions. We're prompting those questions from the audience so that they want to continue to read to get those answers. And you'll notice that's where some works really fall apart, right? You can think of mystery shows, especially like mystery box shows, where they constantly are prompting the audience with questions, and then they get to the end, and you're like, well, they didn't even answer most of those questions. They just kept prompting me with questions to keep me watching, and that's really rude. So, that is a thing you have to worry about. You essentially, David, you are correct. You do need to have a answer key at the end of the book, or more appropriately, you need to have answered all the appropriate prompted questions by the end, or at least, if you're not answering all of them, give the audience enough information they can surmise an answer that they find acceptable. Because that's fine. You can let the audience fill in those gaps. That can be kind of fun. But you have to give them enough information they can feel good. David's like, even my jokes are smart. You are smart, David. Love having you around. All right, so now it is time for us to do our writing sprints. So now we are ready to go, get going on our scene, start prompting those questions. Let's get going. Writing sprint.
We're interconnected. You and me. We're interconnected. We're interconnected. You and me. We're interconnected.
Well, I hope that you have enjoyed these writing exercises this morning and you're off to a flying start. I don't want to throw off your flow there, so I'm just going to chime in for a second to say thank you so much for joining me for Write-Aerobics. Our next Write-Aerobics will be Friday at 10 a.m. And also stay tuned for other events on AutoCrit Live. And if you have any feedback of shows you would like to see, things that would help you out in the community, you let me know. Daniel at autocrit.com, or you can always send me a message on the in the community if you're an AutoCrit member. So you can go in the AutoCrit community. You can always private message me there as well. All right, I will see you around, everybody. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day. Bye.